part of the series sponsored by Tech London Advocates, particularly the remote working group. So if anybody wants to follow for a bit more detail on all the reports and new thinking on remote work, there is Twitter, TLA_RW for remote work. We also have a lovely sponsor, Patchworks, who is the leading integrator for Shopify and NetSuite that many of us depend with their lives on. So thank you, Patchworks. We might get one of the people at the end. But mainly the focus today is to catch up after what was happening with lockdown and how people survived and how we're going to go forward. So can I just quickly ask each of you to introduce yourself, and then we'll go to the main topic. So maybe Amy, do you want to start?
Yeah. So hi everyone, I'm Amy and I work for Summerall & Bishop, and we are a luxury tableware brand based in London. We have 2 bricks and mortar stores, our flagship in Notting Hill, and then we opened a second store in 2017 in Belgravia. We also have an e-commerce site, and we ship all over the world. And I suppose what we do is quite simply, we design and create the world's most beautiful tablecloths.
And I think Amy has got a slide number 4 or 5, the one with very sunny, stripy shops. So if you can just show that out.
Yeah, so that's our newly painted flagship store in Portland Road. So yeah, we've been there for 27 years. And yeah, we sell beautiful tablecloths, homeware, tableware, and basically at S&B what we want to do, we want to change the way that people eat, and we do that by creating these beautiful tablecloths. The table is really about coming together, creating a connection, and a beautifully laid table encourages people to stay at the table longer, so they can talk to one another, laugh, kind of share anxieties and just engage in meaningful conversation. So that's kind of what S&B does, and I run the digital side of business, so I look after e-commerce, marketing and social media.
Great, thank you very much, Amy. We will go later to the whole balance in omni-channel for homeware, but I can tell you, you cannot miss the shops. They are very visible, to say that. Can we move on to John? A couple of minutes on you.
Yeah, hi. But I've been heavily involved in marketing technology, that industry for about 25 years. I actually started out as a creative, as a photographer, doing record covers for bands like The Verve, UB40, various others. And actually today, really exciting, is the 24th, shows how old I am, anniversary of The Verve Bittersweet Symphony. So, wow. It's aged me a bit, and my life was a lot of fun back then. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed just being creative every day. And actually, to an extent, I guess it dialed down my creativity through my business career. Just to an extent, but lockdown, the heat was fully turned up, and I just kind of wanted to be creating things most days. I did over 100 paintings in that period of time, thousands of pictures, all sorts, and started putting stuff out there, and people started picking up on that.
You are a great example of midlife reset, which we will come back to.
Yeah, so that led me to setting up Curb Culture website, starting to design t-shirts as well. Give myself an outlet for some of my artwork and creative ideas. And that was really, I guess, fueled and encouraged by the reset, as you just said, that, the experience of the lockdowns, and people kind of believing in what I was doing, or messaging me saying, oh, I really like that picture. Could you do me a print? Could you do this, do whatever else? So I decided the best thing to do was, set up a store as that's what was demanded, I guess, at the time. So I happenstanced into it to a certain extent, but it was doing really well.
Fantastic. So moving on to Ben, do you want to say a couple of words about your default? I can see the lovely background, so that is right. The new fabric.
Yeah, I can't unfortunately wear any of I was be my brand ambassador for the fold today. The Fold, if you're not familiar with it, is a women's professional workwear brand, UK based. We have a store in Chelsea, lovely store in Chelsea that sadly has been shut for most of last year and a little bit of this year. Other than everybody's bricks and mortars have been shut. I've got a there's the store in Chelsea. So great space to be in. We've done what most people have done. We've spent more time in Zoom. We've also done we did a virtual sort of tour of the new materials at the beginning of this year and the new products that are coming out, group Zoom events. And you can see the print behind me, which is the Symphonia print for one of our items from this year. So, you know, couldn't wear to represent, but at least I could digitally do so. And the Folds brand, as I said, professional workwear women's brand. There's Polly, the founder you see there on the left with the blue. She set up the company about 10 years ago, I think. Primarily, we also traded through the catalog to begin with, and then the catalog moved to the website. My role is the web development manager, so senior web development manager, and I sit on a stack, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point. There's a bit of patchworks running on our system as well, and some other things. And then Katya as well, who's our chief designer. So we've had a fun year of being both physical and virtual. Particularly since last year felt like a very physical expansion for us. We added John Lewis and Peter Jones to the concession for the first time. So we had a very focused brand, very sort of tight group, great company to work with. And we'll see where we expand to. Most of that expansion digitally.
Okay, great. So I think you can stop the slides and we go back to Jenny. So Jenny, do you want to introduce yourself? Jenny Butler?
Yeah, my name is Jenny and I work for We Make Websites as a product owner. So We Make Websites is a global Shopify agency, and we help our clients kind of create websites across mobile and desktop, and sometimes across some apps using Shopify as a basis, but then using different apps and different partners that we that support us, including Patchworks, to create the best journey and the best look and feel for our clients' websites. So I'm the product owner there. I look after all the requirements that come from the clients, and then I tell the internal teams like the UX designers, the QAs, the developers exactly what they have to build, and I manage the workload for the clients.
Great. So we have a composition of people who actually run the brands, start the brands, support the brands, and make them run in the back of the house. So the odd one out slightly is Ben, because he's representing the brand that's using WooCommerce. The rest of us are Shopify.
Yeah, we have a bit of Shopify.
That's
why I was showing you the store. We use the Shopify point of sale system in the store, which has been great. It's a very flexible point of sale device. We just happened to be married into a WooCommerce in-store when I arrived at the company.
So I know a few of you on the call are interested in Shopify POS, so just stay after, we will chat, I think Ian and a couple of other people. So moving on, so Ben, can you just bring up first of my graphy slide? This is not death by PowerPoint, but I just need to give you the context for the conversation today. So this is fresh off the press numbers about what High Street is doing. Thanks, Karen, for sending your reference for the local economy, because this is all on our minds, what's happening at the moment. And we follow a local data company, which is UK best source for vacancies in stores, and kind of reflection where is everybody at in terms of stores versus e-com versus the hybrid. So if you see the graphs, it shows the increase in vacancy rates, which, surprise, surprise, accelerated in 2020. And it accelerated quite sharply. And at the moment, what we're seeing is that the openings are growing, people are opening stores, but the closures are growing faster. So if you go to the next slide, Ben, it shows that the most affected by closure were the city centers. So the vacancy in the city centers, it's 16.7%. So that's a pretty damn high, because basically when you walk through the high street at this level, you see a lot of boarded shops. And the town centers, which has got vacancy about 14.2%, suffered a little bit less. London suffered least, but it's still about 10%. So 1 in 10 shops is closed and it's not looking like they will reopen. So we just have to figure out what we can do about it as e-commerce people and how we can balance, because obviously that affects us all in the social way as well as the commerce way. But the last slide is showing a bit of a hope. So this is showing that some areas were affected less than others. So Hackney only lost about 2.3% of shops, which is great because that's an indication that areas which were predominantly indie shops, you know, like pop-ups, shops run by independent brands, they stayed where they were because the exposure was less and most of the independent brands actually made it. It's the big brands that closed. It's the Paperchase, it's the Debenhams, it's the Topshops, my old, rest in peace Topshop. So they suffered most, but independent brands really didn't. So I think we finished with the slides for now. That was just, I wanted to put as a context. But I wanted today sort of chat about where's your head at in terms of that growth and the store versus e-com and a pure e-com. So maybe we start from from Amy, because she's not only omni-channel, like Ben, but has been omni-channel from before it was really called that. I mean, you've been with the brand for about 9 years, right?
Yeah. Long time, yeah.
So what's your view on that transition? Because you had an incredible lockdown and the brand has done phenomenal. You've got 2 stores, and what's your plans for the continuation and the next steps?
So obviously, you know, I have to say one of the hardest things during the pandemic was really having to close the stores. You know, we've got 2 beautiful shops. I said one's on Portland Road in Holland Park, and the other one's in Belgravia. And you know, it was devastating to have to close them. Kind of not only because they represent a significant proportion of our revenue, but also, you know, we're in these wonderful locations and we're kind of part of a very strong knit community. And it's one of those things that in the beginning we were very unsure as to our future. And like you said, there was news as the year was going on that different brands were closing. And I think basically, you know, I just found myself at this point, the shops closing, you know, we had to scale up our digital fast. And, you know, I took on a huge responsibility kind of to be part of the team and making it work. So yeah, I think, you know, it's been, I think you know, it's great to have to reopen the shops again. Our shops are very, very important to us. We have, you know, a very kind of strong client base and a loyal following. But I think one of the biggest things we did was kind of looking at adapting the way that our website worked and how people shopped in the shop, and trying to kind of move that into them adapting that kind of same process to doing it online. So, you know, one of the things, I think they work both, you know, so well together. For us, you know, the advantages of having the store are great. We're kind of, like I said, we're a destination. People take the time and effort to come and visit us, and, you know, they really enjoy that in-store experience. So, but having the digital side, you know, it's allowed us to kind of open up to the entire world, which we were never kind of, you know, we didn't have the access to. So I think, you know, we've kind of created this initiative of Build the Table. You know, being in the shop, I kind of saw how people shopped. They start with the tablecloth, and from there, you know, that's kind of the canvas to the table. They would go around and they'd pick the glasses to match with that. They'd pick the napkins and this, that, and the other. So we've created this concept online to mirror that, called Build the Table. So, you know, when you're in the tablecloth page, from that setting, you can do all those things from there. You can add the table, you know, add the glasses, add this, and yeah, I think that's just kind of really helped that we've adopted the same process across both.
So you're not quite ready for the virtual reality Build the Table, right? With the headset on.
Yeah, walking around. I mean, it is something we've definitely discussed. We'd love the idea, you know, we kind of thought if people at home, I mean, you know, they could take a picture of, of their table, and if we had some kind of program, then the tablecloth could be laid over it and you could, drag things onto it. We'd love that idea. It's definitely something, we're thinking about.
Yeah, if anybody's got any good ideas on that, let me know, because we have quite few people who love to do that. So the question for John, because I know you were pondering on pop-ups and you were looking at maybe putting your foot into that omni-channel world. What's your view?
Yeah. Firstly, actually, to what Amy was talking about, Glasses Direct, quite some time back, came up with the idea that take a picture of your face and you can try the glasses on and see what the look looks like. So it might be worth looking at them and how they've innovated further. In terms of the pop-up, actually, I've been having a number of thoughts. So one, collaborating with people who've already got a space. So I'm going to be doing something with Microdot, who have a online boutique, and the guy behind that was Brian, who did the Oasis and the Verve covers and so on. So we're actually putting out a print as it's 24 years of Bittersweet Symphony that will go out on Friday, and we're doing that collaboratively. But what I'm looking to do is take some of his products and put them in my online store. I'm also going to put some of mine in his online store, and I'm going to send him physical products to put in his physical stores that he has up north. I've been looking at other sort of gallery spaces, kind of like street art, and other places that are kin to the kind of audience that I believe that I've been building, and the areas of interest that the people have who've been purchasing things. And yeah, I've been looking at Camden, as you know, Ava. I think I shared a link with you, and actually I'm going to share it with Brian, because we're thinking about doing a collaborative pop-up in the first place, and then teasing out from there. But I think it looked good value. I think that there's decent footfall, the right demographic people who are interested in music, art, creativity, tattoo culture, skateboarders, etc. So there's a really, really good mix. And the other thing that I like as well about the area in Camden is that all of the brands and businesses as part of that, I guess, a little park where they've got, the containers and whatnot else, ethical businesses, and that's incredibly important to me.
Yeah, I think it's worth commenting that John's structure is really based around sustainability. So the print for the product is done locally, so it doesn't have to travel very far. So it's sort of brand design in an eco way, grounds up. But can I just run a quick poll to see what everybody else thinks on what do you think about the future of retail? We're thinking it's 100% e-com, mostly e-com, but Primark and Indies will survive, or we will see a big swing back to the stores. So it would be great if you could take a look at that, because 11,000 stores have closed over last year, and about 250,000 people moved out of retail, and e-com created only about 20,000 new workplaces. So if that shift we think is permanent, it's a big one. Okay, let me just end the poll. Right, so let's share the results. So people thinking not 100% e-com, but mostly e-com, with Primark and Indies will survive. Yes, I think that's the way it's landing. I mean, we've noticed that of all the large stores, really Primark, oddly enough, despite the fact that there are misgivings about the eco structure, people still queue up. So it's sort of Primark and Indies. Okay, great. So I will just stop sharing, but that's very interesting. So moving on to the agency view of the situation. So Jenny, you have a very good sort of front line view of where the brands are going and how do they manage the omni-channel. Quite a bunch of your clients are omni-channel. So do you want to share your view on what's happening with Shopify Pulse, and shall we hand over our lives to you installing it? What's the word out on the street?
Yeah, I think our role as kind of an online e-commerce agency is to be the enabler, I suppose, of a seamless journey. I think, with things like Shopify Point of Sale, the purpose is to, if it's quite easy to shop online, you want it also to be able to be easy to shop in store. I think there's definitely a place to have stores. I think a lot of the clients wants to have stores and, you know, things like catalogs and things like that, depending on who their audience is, because some audiences really, really still want to look in store or have a catalog and that kind of thing, and some don't. But yeah, I think our role is to make sure that someone doesn't go into a store and realizes that an item is out of stock, but it's on stock on the website. It's about managing stock and managing kind of system updates with people in store seamlessly, so that the customer doesn't kind of notice what's happening. And also I think there's really great things you can do to make the kind of in-store journey more dynamic as well, using kind of Shopify point of sale, where you know, obviously if you buy online you may be able to get free shipping, next day delivery, different things like this, but you can also kind of buy online, pick up the item in your store, or you can go into the store and get the item delivered. So I think it is just about creating a more flexible and a more seamless journey in store that maybe you would expect more online, when it comes to kind of the systems and yeah, the kind of digital systems.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's a very good point from Ingrid, who knows a lot about e-com and omni-channel. As we decrease our estate and as less stores are open, the stores are struggling to get the full range of stock. So the question is, do we imagine people will accept the fact that the stores really have just a handful, and then the rest you look at iPad and order from the iPad? I think, Ben, you're exploring that direction, yeah, when the store doesn't carry full range,
Yeah.
you can represent it.
Yeah, we certainly been asking that question again. So we reopened the store this year, a couple of months ago. And because that location is, you know, it's a little bit more than just a store for us. It's also an event space. It's you know, the personal styling space. So our stylists are there for the, you know, more extended shopping experiences. Tailoring and fitting take place there as well. We very much came at it with the idea that if you wanted to have more than just e-com, that bonus value-added experience of seeing products, you know, in person shouldn't come with the bite of, well, you can see it, but you can't take it away. So, you know, once upon a time, you might have argued that having your e-com space was your value add, and you could do more than just be a shop. I think now we're actually saying, well, look, no, we definitely survived COVID and the lockdown by being e-com, but now what can we do as we open back up? How do we make sure that our physical space is a value add to our online space? Because we'll have, you know, our customer, she'll be traveling into London or maybe starting to travel back into London again. So what can she get from the fold that she couldn't have got sitting at home, you know, browsing through her website? So that's been a really interesting question to us, you know, because obviously you don't want to, you know, make the effort to turn up in person and find out that it's actually worse than sitting at home and looking at it on an iPad.
Yeah, I think Mike is making a very good point that the stores have to offer the experience, and they can offer it even with a narrower range. Like Amy stores offer amazing experience, even carrying a subset of a subset, but it is sufficient subset to give you really good feel. And then you have quite extensive back ordering. So basically people can order online and just queue up. Like in the good old days, just be patient, you know, it's handmade in Venice, like still. So this is kind of looking for, you know, things we cherish, things are classics, things we can wait for, things which are sustainable. So I'm kind of hoping that that will go. And, you know, Summerhill is a great example of doing that. And hopefully the fold will go that way. But Amy, Jenny, you also have Emma Bridgewater, which has, again, transited pretty much away from stores and into online, and only keeping stores for just the hint of an experience.
Yeah, I think they do an awful lot of the personalization and anything that you kind of expect in store, and they do it very well visually as well on their website, which has helped to keep it online. I think as well, actually, talking about the kind of VR AR side, we have created this kind of view in my garden for a toy company where, you know, you were able to go in your garden on your mobile, take a picture, and you'd be able to see that trampoline or, you know, like climbing frame or something like that within your garden, which in sort of COVID times when you couldn't maybe go and look in store at something, it will give you a kind of idea of what you're purchasing, which is quite a large purchase. or you can say, okay, that looks quite good, and then go into the store and purchase it. But yeah, Emma Bridgewater is a great example of someone that has visually done something that means that they're confident in what they're purchasing, which would normally be a product that they may have to look at in store to be confident of what they're purchasing.
Great. So mix and match a little bit of everything. So I think the conclusion so far is that we need a lot of imagination to reinterpret probably a smaller shop, but maybe still a shop. So maybe smaller real estate, but creative and exciting enough to offer destiny and offer the reason to be there. So like in case of John, it would be quite easy because you can look at the number of designs, and his designs are pretty street and curvy, but there we go. They're kind of tattoo like, but definitely would help to see it, visualize it, and then order, and then you get it in a few days. So I guess this is probably where we're heading. But on that topic, our second big topic today, which I would like to move on to quickly, is the future of work and how we all organize ourselves to tackle that next bit, whatever that hybrid will be. So I was digging around for some reports, and the one that kind of made me sit up really is that Chicago University did an interview with 30,000 small and medium-sized brands and asked them, how are you going to come back post-lockdown? What are you going to do? What's your thinking? And it was interesting because at the moment in US and similar in UK, only about 5% of work pre-lockdown was supplied from home. But now it's about 25% of work done at home. And in many cases, in many sectors, it's much, much bigger. So if it settles on around 20% of work being done from home, that means that high streets will get 20% less of footfall because people will be at home or are the very local high streets rather than town centers. So that is a big shift for everybody. But if this is what's going to happen, we just have to embrace it and go with the flow. So I guess the question is, how do you envisage your teams and your organizations and your customers working in that sort of, combination and a split? So I just wanted to get a quick poll before we go on the future of work. So if you can have a look, what do we think? So what is the future of work for retail brands and others as well? So are we talking 100% in the office, maybe 1 or 2 days in the office? Are we talking about fully remote working from home? And where do we think we are? So the future, it's ours to embrace, but where are your heads at? That's what we want to know. So yeah, I'll just finish it off and be there. It's really a topic that developers are very keen to understand. So looks maybe 1 to 2 days in the office. And I think that's where the city is at as well, because we talk to people who manage the estate for NatWest and for Barclays, and they kind of think that 1 day's max, maybe some departments 2 days. But that's a huge shift for everyone, and it's a huge shift in where we're going to place our pop-ups and our shops and what's going to be. So I guess if I can kick off that round from Amy, because you are quite lucky that you guys in a semi-residential area, so Notting Hill and Belgravia, they're both destinations, but they're predominantly residential areas. So you're probably fine, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's the thing. I think we've, we have become a destination. People will take the time and effort to come and see us because of the experience that they've had, all these years of coming into the store. But I think on a team's kind of perspective, I don't think we just wouldn't work solely working from home. I mean, we made it work last year, and I think that was helped because we were such a strong knit team before the pandemic. So we just cracked our heads together and kind of got on with it. But I think for us, physically designing, product development, you need to be all together in the office. It's all kind of linked to creativity. And I'm used to kind of sitting in the office. I have our CEO and creative director Seb on one side, and I have our head designer on the other. And I can't just turn to them and have that kind of one conversation. where we can each kind of chip in and have ideas. And, you know, obviously as well, selling physical products, we have prototypes sent to the store and samples, and, you know, we have to physically be there to kind of test, you know, check them. And, you know, there obviously are advantages to working from home, but I think we've definitely, you know, communication is harder. It's really not the same as all being together, you know. You're all in one room, you just have one conversation, and it's harder now because you have to kind of pick up the phone individually or set up a Zoom, and, you know, problems with Zoom, someone comes on and the camera's not working or they've muted themselves, and, you know, it's a bit of a time issue. So
well, I think we are going to get a product of the year will be a T-shirt with "You are on mute."
yeah, I feel a lot of times people said,
It's amazing.
On
A
mute.
year and a half later, we still can't hack it.
I know. So yeah.
So that's an interesting. And I guess moving to John, because you have basically set up a whole brand from scratch, completely online, without ever visiting suppliers. You know, for me, that's a shocker because I don't trust anybody until I go and see them. So tell us about your process, because that was stunning to look.
Yes, I mean, I created a network of, basically I can get stuff manufactured and produced now in about 80 countries. And I know that 89% of the time the product can be created in the country that it's being purchased in. There's standardization in the first place, so basically the same blank T-shirt, as it were, that's being used across the board. So that obviously gives you confidence in terms of the quality of that. That they're all using the same organic, you know, non-oil-based inks. That they have signed up to a manifesto, for want of better words, in terms of environment and sustainability, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I mean, as Amy was saying, you know, I've had to order samples from a number of businesses just to make sure that the consistency is there as well. Prior to me being confident to wanting to, you know, sell that to people.
Not without challenges, for sure, but how did you manage the trust? Because
I don't know. I mean, I just adapt to digital first, frankly, you know, and that's my kind of mode of operation, and the route that I've always taken in terms of anything. Trust, yeah. I mean, coming down to, you know, using system. I mean, Trustpilot's one of my clients, as an example, in my other business. So, you know, it's really important for me to read recommendations and reviews, speak to others about their experiences. I spoke to other people who've created online stores and asking them, you know, who are their go-to suppliers. And actually, they've been really collaborative and friendly and quite helpful offering that advice. And I think partly because in future, I want to create an opportunity for them, because, you know, I'm looking for people. I'm not just trying to create a curb culture brand that sells T-shirts. I really want to have a store where I'm giving opportunities to artists, other creatives and designers. So I'm already starting to find those collaborators and their supply chains as well. And so that gave me the confidence.
So that's for me, that's interesting, because you have never even attempted that. I mean, I was involved in a couple of brands with We Make Websites where we had to set up completely new relationship without seeing each other. So Jenny in We Make Websites had to accept clients that, you know, no opportunity to face-to-face contact without handing over their favorite baby, and, you know, trusting somebody who you only see on Zoom. I mean, that is pretty new, and, you know, we only had a year to adapt. But Jenny, do you see that going forward, or do you see now clients actually, can I come and have a coffee with you before I give you my whole business?
I think for us, it kind of depends on how the client feels about it. I think we are set up as an agency, seeing that we have an office in New York, seeing that we have clients that are all over the place, seeing that we have, you know, the stakeholders within those businesses that can be all over the place. We're quite used to talking to each other internally from a distance and digitally and managing that. And we're quite used to doing it with clients. So I think for us, we're very well set up to do it. However, I can understand that it can be quite difficult for the clients to really maybe visualize what it is exactly what's happening over a Zoom call, or just from sharing something, rather than coming in for demos, or rather than having a whole day to go through requirements right in front of somebody rather than just kind of getting them over the phone. But yeah, I think as a digital agency anyway, and probably throughout the tech world, we have always been set up to manage developers that are offshore, other teams that are offshore, other clients that are offshore. And a lot of our team internally, not a lot, but a few of them are just not in the UK anymore. However, they're considered to be part of the London office. So I think we've adapted quite well to it. But yeah, I think we'll be adapting to what the clients want. Obviously, if they want to meet up with us, we absolutely want to. And I suppose, from a personal level, I started this role remotely, and I prefer to be face to face with my team sometimes, so that I can easily understand what's happening and what they need. And I also like being in front of the clients sometimes, just to be able to fully understand their requirements and actually spend a bit of time with them rather than a half an hour call. But yeah, from an agency perspective, I think internally we have very much just adapted and got on with it, because it wasn't too dissimilar to what we were doing before. In many ways, it's just a larger scale.
Great. I just wanted to bring at this point Isa, because Isa has set up an SEO agency that is pretty much functioning remotely. Like, you basically don't see anybody. So how do you feel about it, and how is the sustaining of this client relationship working? Because you were very successful in that. So how does it actually work?
Hi everyone. So yeah, with me, I'm pretty much similar to Jenny, because since I've started working in digital marketing, I've been having like days working from home. And then when I started freelancing, I've been working with clients from all over the world. Like, my first client ever was from Australia. I never seen him. I've just talked to him over the internet. So I'm quite used to that. And we pretty much function digitally now. Sometimes we see people. What I've noticed is, at the beginning when it all started, clients were like, well, can we still see you? Like, is it still allowed to have a face-to-face meeting? Can we check that? Because we would prefer to have a face-to-face meeting. Whereas now, when we're like coming back to normal, I don't have clients being like, oh, can we actually see you? They're like, no, yeah, it's fine. Zoom is okay. Let's just do this and go back to our work. So
can I ask you a question? Do you think it's because SEO is quite muffy and quite numbery? It's not really touchy-feely like what We Make Websites do. Sometimes you need a bit of a warm embrace of creativity. So do you think it's because you operate from numbers to numbers, or they just see you on Zoom and they think, fine, she's cool?
I mean, not 100%, because technical SEO, yes, is like numbery and statistically and things like that. But like, we've got on-page SEO, and we've got content creation, and we've got digital PR/link building kind of things, which are like more creative and more nice and pretty, let's say. I think people just started to trust what, like, majority of us in the digital industry already knew, that it's, if you've got a good team and if you can trust your team, that they can actually do their work from home or from anywhere. As long as they've got access to like computer and internet. And if they're the kind of people that will do the work, they will do it regardless if it's in the office or if it's like remotely. So I think that's what we just started understanding as a society because of COVID. I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing that is coming out of all of this mess, because that will give many of us like more flexibility around work, and more of us will be able to work at all. Like me, for example, being a new mom with a 2-year-old.
So can I ask this question in your area, and as well as the other areas, do you think we will see offshoring of SEO or PPC, or do you think the skills, because if you can do it remotely, you can do it a couple of countries away, or do you think the cultural context is important? Where is your head in that?
Cultural context is definitely important. Depends on the task you do, because you can have a top strategic person knowing the cultural aspects, let's say, and then you can have the more minor tasks, let's say, doing by the juniors who are not that 100% familiar with the cultural aspects. But definitely having someone, like, even with the international SEO, even with let's say, not a pretty thing as a keyword research, you should actually have a person who understands the culture, who understands the differences, even in the English language. Being like, Americans will say something else, and English people will, for the same word, will use a different word for the same meaning. So even things like that, you need someone, because you might be losing out if you don't have that someone.
Okay, so I think on that point, I would like to ask everybody to take a view on, are you planning to offshore your team? So yes, cheaper and better skills abroad, only tech team. No, teams must be together to keep our company culture.
And
So
why is it the
where
tech team
is
get to
your-
leave the country? What's the bias here, Ava? That's not fair.
I'm just being provocative. It's all good. So where do people think we are on that? Because that's the question which I've been asked a lot on, can we go and find us a team there and team there? I'm Polish, so obviously Poland is a big offshore, but we also noticed through the work with Tech London advocates that Nigerians and Indians and many, many different faraway cultures are now looking post-Brexit to participate deeper. So it'll be interesting to see how people feel about that. So let me just share the results. Right, so we think that there might be some offshoring, but overall the company culture is important enough to keep things on shore. Well, the future will tell, but it's a challenge that we will all have to prove ourselves if we're going to compete against faraway teams which are as sharp as ours. So this is a little bit of an edge post-Brexit. So on that topic, I think we're just going to start bringing things to a closure. So can I ask?
Ava, do you mind if I jump in on that?
Sure.
I'll be very brief, but
Sure.
I think the observation that COVID is, forced us to realize that we can work remotely, because it literally has. I think that's a really interesting line to take through this. Not necessarily because of the changing in work behaviors, but again, from the technology standpoint, that technology, or a lot of it's been sitting around since the late 90s and early noughties. And it was more the office culture and the sense of how the team needs to be together and the company needs to be together that wasn't put in such stark challenge until last year. So I wonder if, and I'm just speculating here, but I wonder if that part that's missing, that bit of camaraderie, that bit of the team getting together to collaborate and have a touchy-feely experience, maybe the technology is sitting around to do that as well. And I'm thinking of online gaming and virtual reality and all those things that, if we think virtual reality comes to, a brand because it allows us, our customer, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it comes first to our teams and it gives us a chance to connect outside of the office. That just wanted to put that out there. I hadn't really thought that through, but
That's another thing we will start to trust more after working from home, that the team doesn't actually have to be like, all of the team doesn't have to be in one place or even in one country. I think that's another step forward that we at some point are going to take as a society.
That's a very good point, because Jenny, your team is already partly in Barcelona, right? Sunning themselves on the beach while we're slaving away in North rainy London.
I think it's one person rather than a whole team, but one of our product owners moved to Barcelona.
So they offshore themselves, basically.
They offshore themselves. I think, offshoring is kind of, I suppose it has connotations of, we're moving everything here or moving everything there. But actually, I think in our agency, we have the New York office, we have the London office, and some people, I'm based in London, some people are based in New York. But some people are also based in Toronto, and some people are based in, other parts of Europe. And I think that, I could be wrong, but I think that may be something that has really happened in COVID, where the company's gone, okay, actually, we can get the best talent from around the world, because I might be in London near the office, but I'm not going in anyway. So what difference does it really make? So it's not so much that we've gone, let's go to this country, let's go to that country. We've just widen the net, I suppose, to actually find people that we want to work for the company, and taking them from different areas of the world, really. But one of the product owners did move to Barcelona partway through COVID, which I don't blame him for at all.
Okay, John, you wanted to make a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a fun comment. I don't know if people remember reading the news some time back. It was a technology director, I believe he was at RBS, but anyway, it was at one of the big banks, and he outsourced his job. And he sat there, and he was probably on a couple of $100,000 a year, and he had people offshore doing his actual job, his entire job for him, and he did nothing. Brilliant.
That's inspiration for us all.
And I think he got away with it for about 10 years.
Yeah. Well, in some way, that's probably eco-friendly, right? If
What
you
does it tell you? It tells you it can work if you get it right. Absolutely. Maybe he was just ahead of the time.
right. So a couple of comments from each of you on the future of work and fashion sustainability. So, Amy, do you want to summarize your thoughts on the future?
I think, yeah, I think, I don't know, as you've kind of said, I think being put in a position where we've had to kind of think on our feet, and I don't know whether before we were just all very comfortable and having this pandemic and no one could plan for it, and it does just show you, like, I think there's a thing they say about after kind of a period of kind of a distress, or I think something like after wars, it actually allows this time for kind of creativity to flourish, because you're forced to to do something. So I think I think change is good, and I think I think adapting some of your policies and processes and whatever, but I think actually being kind of open-minded and looking and not being scared of doing things that you've never done before actually works out great. So.
Go, Amy. Okay, Ben.
I think it's interesting that one of the things I've always enjoyed about working with The Fold is that they're a slow fashion company rather than a fast fashion company. So we're starting already from a good few steps in terms of being potentially able to be more fashion sustainable than some brands that we won't mention. But that doesn't mean we haven't stopped. There's a lot of work was done last year, pre-pandemic really, and last year, to remove all plastic from our internal office packaging, all our shipping. So that's all paper products. We're working to find sustainable paper products for those kind of things. Actually, I think that's been completed. But last year as well, we've picked different materials. That was also part of our COVID switch as well. Well, materials that are easier to wash, crepes that are sourced sustainably. So there's a very strong sustainability culture that we've embraced, and part of that does go to the remote team as well, because there are distinctly advantages in terms of how much both goods and personnel need to be shipped and moved around in the process of doing your business. So I hope that it will be not a flash in the pan, that it isn't something we all thought, well, we had a year off of carbon because nobody flew to Spain and now we can get back into it. I hope the future's strong on sustainability because the opportunities are there, and I think any company can make effort and inroads on this if they set their mind to it.
Right, thank you very much, Ben. And John?
Unmute, there we go. So the idea of working remotely, my day-to-day business, I mean, we've always had the aspect of working from home anyway, but there were a number of systems that we had to put in place. We put a ticketing system in place. We were using Trello for task management. I'm a big fan of creating automations, so we were using things like Zapier to better automate parts of tasks and processes. Google Apps, I think, has been fantastic, and just having everything there in the drive as kind of a backup of sorts. And then, as you know, I mean, as I say, within the brand that I'm building is purely a digital-first approach. Frankly, we've consulted with our teams and staff and so on, and I don't want to go back to a world of being in the office all the time. As long as people hit the level of productivity that's expected and can deliver on that, then that's fine. Actually, Jenny made a really interesting comment about clients. We've worked for hundreds of clients over the years. I've probably only met 5% of the total. So I don't think it was really ever a problem before, and I think that's because they were remote. They're in other countries. I guess some businesses are built digital first, aren't they? And I think that's the bottom line. And that's the approach that I feel comfortable with. You save money. I think you save time, and it allows you to better invest in other areas, typically in good quality people.
Yeah, we just heard that both WordPress and Shopify have committed to almost entirely remote work practice, and who can blame them? I mean, they can they can manage that. So for Jenny, for you, final comments, probably not much of difference. You're kind of semi-remote anyway, right?
Yeah, I think, I mean, really everywhere that I've worked, even before We Make Websites was...
Because you were in fintech, right? You were with MasterCard and...
Yeah, I was in Collinson Group, which did like Priority Pass and things like that, and access into different airports around the world. And then before that, I was within kind of e-commerce and trading space in the charity sector. And that has always been quite partly through mental health driven, I think, as well, to make sure that people can work from home occasionally. And it kind of gives people that work-life balance, especially if you have children and things like this. So actually that has been a common theme everywhere that I've worked, that you can work from home a couple of times a week. So to me, obviously I've been at home all the time, but it's common for me to have a bit of a mix anyway. And I think in the tech world, it can be quite common for it to be that way.
Okay, I'm not even going to ask Isa because she was digital first and invented the whole work from home business. So that's fine.
I don't think I've ever worked full time from the office, to be honest. So
no, she's probably the youngest of us, and it's a completely different generation. Like my daughter is now coming into workspace. She would never consider working for a company that wants her to be in the office. Like, why would you? She think they're a bunch of idiots. So I think it will redefine itself with the younger lot because they just have better balance of life attitude. And it will be very interesting to watch it, and we would be very happy to support experimentation. So just to finish off before we stop recording and then bring a few more people for the conversation after, but I think from the Tech London advocates, we are very much into supporting any hybrid work people need. And if anybody has got any questions, specific advice on both work from home, part work from home, or get back people to the office, we'll be happy to help.